Hello everyone, episode 2, we're finally here, we've made it, what a milestone that is. Buzzing to be back, the studio's looking excellent. As you can see, I've got a familiar face with me to the right, Cammy. He's managed to make it back for one more episode. He's got some commitment issues, but we're trying to fix that for him. I've also got a very, very special guest with me across this table. We sold him pretty well, I think, in the last episode, so there's no pressure, Gordon. This is Greenock's guru, Gordon the Guru. Gordon, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well, Andrew. Thanks for inviting me. It's an absolute privilege and pleasure to spend some quality time with you.
That's it. I know that's what I was saying. If nobody sees this, the best case scenario is I'm still getting an hour or so with Gordon, so it's still a pretty good result. But we just wanted to quickly give a shout out to everyone that's watched the first episode, because I kind of set a target for myself how I wanted it to go, and it was a lot lower than what actually happened. I think I said I want 100 views in the first week, that'd be great, and we're at like nearly 450 at the time of recording, so yous have been amazing. Thank you so much. And we've got loads of nice messages. Cam, you've got a few messages as well, didn't you?
I did get a few, it was quite pleasant actually. I was quite surprised.
Yeah, really overwhelming. Some of the messages that we got were so nice, and that's not some people were telling me that they got something from it, and that's exactly the kind of reaction that I'm wanting. Like, that's the reason why I'm doing this. Even if just a few of my pals see this and they're able to get something from it, from the things that we've learned or things Gordon's learned or anything, that's the main thing. So buzzing with everyone's reaction, and hopefully we get a similar reaction to this one, because like I said, we've got a great guest with us today who I think is going to at least tell us a great story and give us some wisdom that's in there somewhere.
Well, I have an act to follow from last week, so hopefully I'm up to it. So,
definitely, I'm sure you will be. Also, just wanted to give a quick shout out. We've got a couple of nice little crystals over here. We got them from All Sorts, and they sell all sorts of stuff. They've got, I bought fidget spinners from there when my nephew was here. I bought phone chargers, about 10 of them, because I break them all the time. As you can see, crystals, bed sheets, everything that you could want. They're in the middle of our Girl Street. It's our pal Karen. I thought it'd be nice to give her a wee shout out, because without Karen introducing me to you, I would probably have never met you. So it was like a nice wee full circle moment. Give Karen a wee shout out. So if you see this, go and buy something. Like I said, she sells all sorts, so if you need something, you go in there, she'll have something for you.
And you should maybe sit Argyle Street, Dunoon.
Yeah, that's it. Argyle Street, Dunoon, not in Glasgow. Well done, Gordon. Thank God you're here. In fact, no, we're just grateful you're here. So yeah, now that we've got all that good stuff out of the way, we can get into the meat and potatoes of this. So like we said, Gordon, you've had quite a life, haven't you?
62 years of it so
that's
far.
Another thing, by the way. Can you believe this man's 62? Because he does not look it. He looks a lot younger.
Thank you.
But yeah, I thought I like to start at the beginning with most people, because I think that just gives you, I think with you starting from the beginning is good, because you've had quite a transition from where you were to where you are now, and it's a good way of kind of giving a bit of a positive example of what this stuff can do. So you told me you had quite humble beginnings at the start, didn't you, in your early life?
I usually, when I talk about myself, I usually start in my teenage years.
Yeah.
Because the beginning was I was born. We're not going to start at that beginning. But I was a troubled teenager and hard work. And my dad changed my name for a number of years to Mr. Angry and the Growler. And it was justified. And it wasn't I was angry at my dad. I was just, I now recognise it as the identity crisis, and that's the case for all kind of teenagers going through, puberty and finding your place in the world, and now even more so with the influences of social media. So I was just struggling with myself. And my only ambition in life as a teenager was to get out of school. Which I just thought was hideous.
It's quite common that. I know a lot of people that left school as soon as they had the opportunity, they were like, I'm out of here.
Yeah, and I didn't really think beyond that. And I remember going home after my last day, and I remember it was a gorgeous summer's day, and I arrived back home, and my dad was there, and he said, okay, what's the plan? And I said, well, plan? My only plan was to get out of school. I didn't think beyond that. And they said shipyards, or I could maybe get you a job as an apprentice electrician. And I thought, well, shipyards, no. I didn't fancy the other one either.
Yeah.
And I took a job as an apprentice electrician that my father got me. And it was poorly paid. It wasn't what I wanted to do. And I felt probably more angry then, and angry at myself, because I was top of the class all the way through primary school. And then in secondary school, it was just like, it was a game of two halves. I was influenced by bullies and distractions, and I just walked down a dark road. I didn't even attend school a lot of the time. So I left with 3 O-levels, which even in those days wasn't very much in the way of qualification. So I had limited choices. And I remember, and this is usually where I start my story, I remember walking to that job, my very first day. And I remember it was a gorgeous July summer's day. And in my head, I said, I've ruined my life. As a 16-year-old, I remember clearly saying that to myself. But I also remember having a thought, if I ever get the chance again, if I can claw this back, I'll take it. And I had no idea what that might be. And what it became was more or less 8 years in further education. I spent almost as much time as I did in my primary and secondary school education, doing night school and day release and all that kind of stuff. So kind of doing it the hard way.
Yeah.
And got a little bit older and eventually got a job in IBM in Greenock. And I went from 44 pence an hour, which even back then didn't afford you to go anywhere. I mean, I had no life, So I was Mr. Angry, kind of confined to, 4 walls, more or less. The highlight of my life was actually a neighbour's cat across the street. This little cat called Tammy.
Yeah. The highlight of your life, did you say that?
And this is what I'm talking about, how do you get to be, evolved to... Yeah. In my world, behind my eyes and between my ears, I recognise now, looking back, I was very depressed. I was lost, I was confused, and to say that you've ruined your life, it's like saying the end, ruined is pretty much, dust.
That's
so
a bit of a final word.
And for me, this little cat was a bit like a nomad, and you just hear it at the front door, like meowing away, and it would come in. It was just like the highlight of my life at the time. This little cat.
Yeah.
Wait, Gordon, I didn't expect this to be the beginning of the story.
That must be telling you something.
Aye, and it was humbling, and I just thought, what, I feel a little bit better being around this 4-legged furry animal. And this is what I often say to people nowadays, whether it's a dog or a cat or a whatever it is, a sunrise, a rainbow, whatever it is that moves your emotional dial. And the important thing to add to that is whether it's right in front of you or something vividly imagined, the mind doesn't know the difference. So even reflecting on my memories of that cat, I'm seeing the cat in my mind's eye. I remember the feeling, and it's decades ago.
Yeah.
So all of these feelings are accessible, but I didn't know that when I was 16. And I got this job in IBM, which, a little stroke of luck, required a minimum of 3 O-levels to get through the door. And somehow, I just thought, I'm kind of grown up now, and I feel that I've got a job, and I've gone from basically 80 quid a month to £272 a month paid in advance. These things that and I'm in the pension plan, and I'm working with a group of young guys like yourselves at the time. We were playing 5-a-side football during the week, and it was great banter and all that kind of stuff. So I found some stability. But fast forward. I decided to trip the light fantastic and leave that job voluntarily, and I moved to California. And I thought Baywatch, Mickey Mouse, beaches. And this is often what I talk about. When I arrived there, I realised that I took me with me.
Yeah.
So oftentimes people think the grass is greener, I'll go to California or some version equivalent of that. And unless you've got the skills and the ability that I now have and that I teach on a regular basis, both with my personal clients and my classes, that I always had, but I didn't know I had them. Yeah. I didn't even feel they were available. And like most people, I was looking outside of myself, beaches and restaurants and, ways to live happily ever after.
Yeah.
And the answer to that resides behind your eyes and between your ears.
Yeah, 100%. Because I was actually going to say, like you saying you were depressed and then going to having a job that wasn't paying you very much to then a job that's paying you a lot better. You've got a bit of a group of friends you're doing things with now. like you were. It was obviously you were putting yourself in a better position, so you're naturally going to feel happier. But if you're not dealing with what's going on inside you, that's only going to last for a certain amount of time. And so you were kind of just papering over the cracks a little bit. And you've done the same thing with going to California. Just like it's sunny over there, so it's naturally going to be better. But then, like you said, you took yourself with you, and you had to deal with that.
Yeah. And what I was doing was I was kind of walking around in the world, according to Gordon, in what I now refer to as quiet desperation.
Yeah.
So although the sun was kissing my face, and you know, I'm watching the surfers and the flamingos and all that, I still felt this kind of heaviness about my life, and you know, and you know, I just felt that I wasn't in the right place, and it wasn't geographically. I just thought, where am I going with my life? And it's not a good feeling. And because I've had those personal, profound experiences, I draw on those. Because, you know, to say to someone, know how you feel, I was there, I felt the same way. I know what that feels like, you know, and I've found that there are some ways to healthily get yourself past it very quickly, and that's what I teach now. And what allows me, there's a local community group, fantastic organisation in Inverclyde called Manon. Inverclyde, you heard of Manon?
Yeah,
Inverclyde?
you've mentioned it to me before.
Yeah, I mean, it says it right underneath, you know, it's a suicide prevention support group, and I've been privileged to go in there on a number of occasions, and I'm going in again in a couple of weeks to support their staff development. And the very first thing that I said when I met the group that was there the very first time that I went in was to say, I could quite easily have been sat where you are, because I had those thoughts, those scary, dark thoughts. You know, however you're choosing to do it, the Erskine Bridge or whatever. So we created that rapport and that bridge, and it often does surprise people. You know, you know this guru guy. You know, you know the guy with all the answers, and they think, you know, no, I've been so adversity, pain, struggle. Is valuable, and this is again something that I teach, but I didn't recognise that when I was in it.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you know, whether we go through a crisis, personal health related crisis, COVID-19 or whatever, when you're in it, as unpleasant as it is, you know that it will change. And we're already moving past that now, and of course we're dealing with a different crisis. And that's just what life's like. So it can be personal, or it can be a relationship issue, it can be environmental. And this is what I say to everybody now when I meet them for the first time. You have walked in the door with everything that you need. Called your 5 senses, if you're gifted to have all 5. Stevie Wonder's one short, with the great respect to the great
and he's
Stevie.
done pretty well with it.
He's done pretty well. And your ability to think. So we cannot pull anxiety out of the air. We can't order it on Amazon or through a catalogue. And when you recognise that everything that you feel as a human being is an internal creation, that's the magic sauce. Oh, wait. Were you telling me that it's got nothing to do with my father or the barking dog next door? Yes, those things can have an influence. But when you go inside and you realise, you know, this is my irritation, this is my anger, this is my tight jaw, or this tightness in my chest, you know, it's an internal creation. That's the really good news, because you cannot feel good and bad at the same time. Yeah. You cannot 100%. Do it. So if you have a preference, and I haven't met an exception to this yet, I haven't met anyone yet, I believe it's universal, that doesn't want to live happily ever after. They don't want to, you know, do you know anyone that doesn't want to be healthy, happy and prosper in the world?
Yeah, not many.
The devil, maybe.
Exactly, a maniac, a psychopath. You know, but most regular,
it doesn't happen.
Everyday people, we want to be healthy and happy and prosper in the world, and that translates into a better night's sleep, you know, great relationships, your ability to be resourceful and creative. You know, otherwise all that shuts down. That's what stress and anxiety does. It just shuts everything down, including your immune system, which is the very thing that we want to be propping up, particularly nowadays. You know, stress is deadly, you know.
Definitely. Yeah. It's crazy as well how, because we'll get into this later, but how much like little things that we do every day that are negatively impacting that. One thing, I can't remember who said it, but somebody made a really good point and say, a very British thing to do is if you ask somebody how they are, they'll say, oh, I'm not bad. It's like, how are you not just saying you're good? Like, it's already in a pessimistic mindset by saying I'm not bad. So it's like we're constantly focusing on the bad all the time, and we're experts at that. And you can train your brain to think the totally opposite way. It's not going to be overnight, but there definitely is ways to do that. And that's, I think so many people are just kind of floating through life without actually being aware of that. And they're just constantly going in a circle of putting themselves back into that place without even knowing it. So it's great we've got people like Here At You on the internet able to hopefully steer people in the right direction and have people thinking about that sort of thing.
You're 100% right, Andrew. Most people operate unconsciously and automatically. How's it going? Not bad.
Yeah.
And there's a method that's, you know, experiential, that demonstrates the effect on your body when something goes through your mind. It's called muscle testing.
Yeah.
We might have done it when you were in the class at one time, and because the mind's the body and the body's the mind, you know, we're an energetic, biochemical, physiological being, you know. We've got so many dimensions and aspects, and what muscle testing allows us to do is to connect with the body in a way to see what influence thoughts have. So I'll ask people just to extend their arm out parallel with the ground. They'll say, okay, I want you to say I am good, and I'll just exert a little bit of pressure, downward pressure, and the mind and the body goes, yeah, that's true. Or my name is Andrew. It will lock. If you were to say my name is Billy, I'd say just go ahead and resist me, and this would be the effect on your arm.
Yeah.
And not bad has that effect because the mind deletes the not. People don't realise every time they're saying not bad or not too bad, they're actually saying bad, and energetically that depletes you.
And not in itself is a negative word as well. It's like double negative.
Yeah, don't think on your front door, don't think on a pink elephant, don't think on any of your worries and problems, and the mind's just like, it's just rapidly going there, and I'm asking you not to do it. So the mind just gravitates there.
It's like a natural thing for human beings, but to focus more on negatives than positives for some reason. I don't know if that goes back to our ancestors, like in the wild. Obviously you need to be on edge in case a lion's going to jump out and eat you, so it's almost, is that...
I think a big part of it is cultural, Cami. You're right, because again, I noticed when I lived in California, and a lot of us here, you know, like, you know, there's Americans, you know, but I'd much rather have a phony have a nice day than a gorgeous day today, but have you seen the forecast for the rest of the week, you know, which is a tendency that we have, you know, it's like, what, you know, so it does take a little bit of effort, and you do want to do it with an integrity. I mean, you know, it used to be that I would answer people, if you were to ask me, how's it going, Gordon? Good, great, yourself, you know, and I just lied to you.
Yeah.
And I lied to me. I didn't mean to do it, but I didn't want to lay all my, are you really asking how long have you got? And then to rhyme off all my problems. So what that does is it knocks you off balance. So what I teach people now is to, best you can, maintain your integrity, you know, and the balance of your body. So if you are dealing with struggles, and we all are, and we go in and out of them, and somebody genuinely asks you, you know, because it's become an alternative hello, hasn't it? How's it going?
Yeah.
How are you? They're not really asking, you know. But if someone is genuinely asking, Andrew, how are you? You know, and if you say, are you really asking? You could say, Gordon, just unbelievable. You know, and I'd be like, what is that? Unbelievable. You know, right? Yeah. So it allows, unbelievable is like a kind of neutral answer rather than saying great, good, fabulous, fantastic, when it's just not true. Yeah. Because that's the effect that it has. And it does deplete you over time. And this is the power of words, you know. We're talking about, I was on an Instagram interview recently. We're talking about the power of words and affirmations. And one of the words that was highlighted is the word incurable. And, you know, if you were to hear from somebody influential that, you know, based on what I'm looking at here, I'd say this is incurable in my professional assessment. When you hear that word incurable, what are you going to feel?
Yeah. Incurable.
I mean, scared. Oh my God, you know, alarm bells will go off. But when you break the word out and you hyphenate it, and you hyphenate the in and the cure and the able, and I say this is incurable, and you can hand it over to the intelligence of your body, because what the mind does is it knocks you off balance. All the time, and it seems like it's going on in the background, and there's nothing much that we can do about it. But I've discovered there's a lot that you can do about it. So rather than live unconsciously and automatically, you can live very consciously and deliberately. And it does require some practical things and some ritualistic things that you do. You know, I mean, I was a personal trainer for 15 years. Fast forward, so I don't do that anymore, but I can say I know all that stuff. I don't have to go to the gym.
Yeah.
Well, if I neglect going to the gym, or neglect having a shower, I'm clean enough. I washed myself, first week in January. That'll do me for a few months,
Yeah.
So, but what do we have for our mental, emotional health? And I've discovered most people don't have much.
Yeah.
It's like habits, creating good habits and practicing it every day is what you're trying to say.
It's like
Exactly.
neuroplasticity. You want to keep doing it and change your brain's grey matter to a more positive wiring. And you can do that through just repeating as simple as repeating affirmations constantly to yourself that are positive, because we're constantly doing it the other way all the time. Like that, see, when you said at 16 I've ruined my life, like you probably didn't think anything of that other than it's just a fact, but you're having such an effect on your brain when you're saying that.
And it was an affirmation, and I didn't know what an affirmation was at the time. And and for people that think this is like kind of new agey, they're talking about affirmations. An affirmation is anything you think and anything you say out loud. So people use affirmations their whole life, whether they call it an affirmation or not, because you're always having thoughts and you're always, having some kind of dialogue, So that's what an affirmation is, and they're very important because when you say, I am, and you fill in the blank with whatever comes next, that's a statement and an affirmation. So if it's negative, if it's, I am rubbish at this and I am never going to amount to anything, the way the subconscious works is it only knows one word or a version of the word, okay. I'm never going to amount to anything. People aren't to be trusted. Money's the root of all evil. Life sucks. I've ruined my life. The subconscious, which is also known as the feeling mind, just receives it. So if that's the case, when you feed it something, even if it's never been your experience your whole life, the subconscious is with repetition going to go, okay, you're saying that again. Well, every day in every way, I'm getting better and better. I'm so happy and grateful now for all the fill in the blank that comes to me in increasing quantities from multiple sources on an ongoing basis. Now, this isn't stuff that we learned in school. I know I didn't.
Yeah.
And you can obviously tell that I've memorized these things and I use them. And, and this is what I'll share with you guys, and I do with everyone. I will not ask anyone to do a single thing that I don't do myself. And because I've learned that success leaves clues. And for me, there's all kinds of definitions of success. Again, it's, some people, that's fame and fortune until they get it. And then they discover, I didn't really think this through, so there's
that
lots of
comes down to setting your expectations in a healthy way as well. Like, just like we were saying, like my expectations are purposefully set pretty low for that first episode so that I was going to be happy if I met or bet that. So if you're kind of setting yourself a healthy level of expectation, not being pessimistic, but just making sure that you're, you're constantly.
You're not expecting too much.
You're not expecting too much.
Then you can only lose in a way.
Exactly. So it's the same with like any sort of goal. You can define what success is to yourself. That's the point I was trying to get to. That's good. My train of thought was like nearly crashing there, but we managed to get it back on track. But you can define success in any way that you want, and a lot of people think that success is, like you said, getting a lot of money, getting all the girls, all the fame, but 9 times out of 10 they get that and realise that that's not actually what they want. And it's like it comes down to accountability, really. Like,
and again, it's open to, it's subjective, isn't it? Success, and for me, I believe living your life in your own way is the definition of success. And you can live your life in any way you want. And people might have other ideas that, they might call you a loser, but you're living the life of your dreams, meditating 8 hours a day, and, just, finding food wherever you can find it. A lot of people might look at that as, guys, a waste of space or whatever. Go and get a real job, to some, I used to talk about a guy regularly in my classes some years ago. I used to meet him outside my local supermarket, Aldi. His name was Daniel. And he came from another country, it was a South American country, I forget exactly which one. But he arrived in Glasgow Central Station, and to him this was the dream. And he couldn't even speak any English. And I got to know him, and I learned, he had a couple of kids, and I'd respectfully decline his magazine, but I would ask if it was okay to give him the money for the magazine, And he didn't know it. Every time I saw him, I was reminded of, in my mind, how blessed I was, how lucky I was. I didn't come from another country, couldn't speak the language, and I'm standing outside a supermarket selling the Big Issue. And I would applaud that man in my mind. I would, every time I'd see him, he really was feeding my spirit. And yet that could be perceived in another way, and some people do look at these foreigners that come in and go and get a real job, and well, he's got a real job. And why don't you take it? Do you see what I mean? So everyone has their place in the world, and everyone counts. And this is often what I say, particularly people that feel at the end of the rope. Maybe back to Man, some of the people that I've worked with there. When I tell them how significant they are, the only does it matter if I'm here or I'm not here? And well, the fact that you're here says something, and you're hugely significant. And I'll tell them how they are serving me in that moment, and they don't, because they're so in their head looking at the world the way they're processing it. And back to what you were saying about your podcast. I would say that, the number of views you get and how it grows is a byproduct. A bit like what I do is the money is a byproduct, but because I'm interested in, adding some value, and this is what you're doing here, I'm going to add some value for the people that are willing to listen and ready to hear it. And even if they leave after your podcast with one thing that's going to turn their life on an upward trajectory, is that worthwhile?
Of course it is.
Definitely,
and sometimes that one thing can serve you the rest of your life. There's a morning ritual, and I think it ties in with a question you're going to ask later on. But there's a morning ritual that I've been doing for years, and the number of people that have said to me, just that one thing, starting my day, teeing it up that way, completely transformed my life. Just that one thing.
It does. One positive thing can make such a huge difference, and then I think it's kind of a bit like when a kind of ball of snow rolls down a hill, you do one more positive thing, it's going to make you want to do more positive things. And especially like me, I deal with addiction mainly to bad food. I've talked to you about this, and I've mentioned this in the previous one. And when you're dealing with that, there is a great possibility that you're going to fall back into that. But having these tools, it means you can bounce back a lot quicker, and it's honouring your decision when you do it as well. You talk about that too. When you do it, if you're like, right, okay, I'm accepting, I've made this decision to do this today, but then I'm going to commit to tomorrow going back to doing my good habits and stuff like that as well. I think it's all about maximising it and just doing it as much as you possibly can, because it will start off little changes and then it will get better and better and better constantly.
And just something you said there, a lot of people are, in my view, and this was certainly me, we're human doings. We've got to be busy and active, and if we decide to run a bath and have a glass of wine, we're so occupied with guilt that we should be doing something else. We're not enjoying the decision that we've just made. So honouring your decision is really important, because otherwise there's going to be inner conflict. So when you own your decision, and the thing about doing something, you could call that an action, if you like. I'm actively doing something. But having a bath or watching a movie, say, which is like, some people think it's just like doing nothing. I'm just sat on the couch.
You're not being productive. You're being lazy.
But it's still doing something. That's still an action. But often it's not looked at that way, and that can be the very thing that you need to do. Going to the gym and exerting yourself is great, but the rest and the recovery is just as important.
Definitely.
And so we always want that balance where we can find it. You know,
definitely. Because I think even things like that can make you feel good. Like I've talked about this to a few of my friends. There's this YouTuber that I've found, and he just makes like little funny skits, and I can't get enough of them. I watch them all the time. So I've made it a habit now. Before I go to bed every night, I just watch a few of his skits. He's called ProZD, by the way, if there's any nerdy people out there that like it just as much as me. But I just watch that before I go to bed every night now, and I go to sleep feeling so much better, because I'm giving myself a little bit of that joy before I go to bed. And sometimes as well, there'll be people that will go through hardship, and they're going to need to just be in a state of, like feeling sorry for themselves for a bit, because it's your body's natural reaction. You kind of just need to accept that that's what you're going to do, because if you're constantly saying to yourself that you shouldn't be doing that, it's just going to make things a lot worse. Because, like you said, you can't be good and bad at the same time. If you're doing something to make you feel good, you're sitting there in your head making yourself feel bad about that. It's like, again, you're just doing it. It's not worth doing if you're going to be like that.
And what you're doing before bed, watching those skits, that's a huge contribution to your mental well-being, because what we now know is how you go to bed is how you'll wake up in the morning. So if we watch the 10 o'clock news or a horror movie and then we put our head on the pillow, the subconscious mind is in play 95% of our lives, including while we're asleep.
Yeah.
It's powerful, it's mighty. So whatever you put in there, so to go to bed feeling uplifted, or you're feeling good about it, and then your head hits the pillow, that's typically going to feed into the following day. So it's really important, what we choose to do and not do, and it's not to be morbid about it, but I often referred to the identity crisis earlier on, and usually we're coming out of one crisis and we're headed to the next one anyway, so the next big one is the midlife crisis, time to buy a Harley Davidson, get a few tattoos, grow a ponytail if you're capable of doing that, and find our youth, reconnect, and then we get through that, and then wouldn't you think we would cruise, with a bit of wisdom and life experience right to the inevitable end, There's no surprise, is there? We have this birth experience and this death experience, and life is the bit sandwiched in the middle.
Yeah.
But the big crisis at the end, or near the end, people that are nearer the end than the beginning, is the mortality crisis. And it's not a surprise, but I've discovered with people I work with, they're eroding the quality of their life now, even when they're healthy and they've got lots of stuff going on, because they're concerned about how it might happen, when it might happen, and it's not very emotionally intelligent.
Yeah.
But these are often sophisticated people, academically brilliant, could even be millionaires, and I have worked with some millionaires and successful people in that regard financially, but they're eroding. Yeah. They're beginning to fade, and it's all going on behind their eyes again and between their ears, and they don't really know what to do about it.
Exactly. It's interesting as well how you were talking about worrying about things that haven't happened yet, because one of the questions that I think you were wanting to ask, Cammy, was about anxiety and ways of dealing with that, and you were kind of alluding to that already. I think a good way of dealing with it is, I think you talk about a guy called, is it a.k.a. that does the Power of Now?
Yeah.
So if you're in the moment, you'll realise that there's not really much I'm coming to go and say about that to Greg. Sorry, we can edit it. So sorry about that interruption, guys. I was in the middle of my flow there, and then a drill started. Right, I might go and see if I can find Greg and say to him.
I knew that was going to happen. Just as
He says he's going to tell him to stop. It's
cool.
like they're stopping now, so we'll do take. Hello everyone, take 3. Sorry about that. There's some work going on upstairs. You'll probably hear it a little bit in the audio earlier on, but thankfully that should be stopping now. So what we were talking about before we were rudely interrupted was the power of now and sort of dealing with anxiety. Because we were just having a little bit of conversation while we were waiting for this to come back on. I've certainly dealt with anxiety. I'm sure that you've dealt with anxiety, Cammy, as well. And we know people in our life that are dealing with anxiety, so we think it'd be really beneficial to hear from somebody that's got like Olympic medals and all this stuff, how to deal with that if you're kind of building up to that or feeling that sort of way.
Yeah, well, what we know is, this is a more recent thing that I do with people, is say, go ahead and raise your hand in the past, will you? Okay, let's have a go at the future. And then, so just humour me and let's just raise our hands. And when do we raise our hands? We raise our hands now, in this moment. But what we know is that the mind resides, often it vacillates between the illusion of the past and the future. And in that illusion, it can feel very real now. So if it's, a should have or a could have or a, regret and embarrassment or whatever, shame, the emotional dial's coming down, and that can activate a feeling of anxiety or whatever, a negative emotion. Similarly, if we're looking into the future and it's gloom and doom and I should be further ahead with my life, right now, the emotional dial's coming down. So the past and the future are an illusion, but they can feel very real right now. And what Eckhart Tolle teaches in all his big seminars and in his books is when you live in the present moment, which is the only time that ever exists, the illusion of the past and the future falls away and you're present. And in that present moment, you're aware, and then you can, direct your focus anywhere you want. You can direct the mind, to things that, bring you joy and make your heart sing. So, and that's what he calls consciousness or presence. Most people, and this still includes me, but I'm a lot more aware and conscious than I used to be, and it's something that you can cultivate as you go forward. So when you're aware and present, and you notice, for example, suddenly I notice my hands are cold, or time to put a pair of gloves on, in that moment that you notice anything, then you have a choice to change it, otherwise you're in it. And what Eckhart Tolle writes about is the collective unconscious, who just wake up and go about their day like on autopilot, and we are triggered by songs on the radio or in the shopping mall, or the expression on a stranger's face, or somebody walking along the beachfront who subliminally reminds you of your father that used to beat you up, or that bully in school or whatever. So the mind is constantly processing things, and it influences how we feel. And if you just feel down and off and low or anxious, then we'll look for some relief from that, or an antidote or a remedy. And some people look for that in a bottle of vodka or a cigarette or some drugs, and if it gets to the point where it just feels helpless and hopeless, seems a lot less painful to not be here than to be here. So there's a way that we do it, and when you discover that there's a non-invasive way to access these resources and the power of the subconscious mind, which is always working on your behalf. But it doesn't seem, it's like, I got to stop these thoughts, and then I just go, forget, just activate a better feeling thought. Just reach for, and whether it's something you've experienced, like a concert or a holiday or something, a memory, or something that you make up, the mind doesn't know the difference, and it does take a little bit of practice.
That's right. Because I remember when we were doing one of our sessions, and I think this came in the class too, we were like, try and pick a moment, and I was like, there was this time, and we can't really talk about this as much at the moment because we're not doing as well, but when Rangers scored against Celtic, and I just thought about that, and I was like, that's right. There was like a video that I think they made with like the Titanic music of us scoring and all the fans cheering, and it just brought me, I'm getting in that state right now, just thinking about it and talking about it. It brings me so much joy, and it is as simple as that. It's the same as like when I watch those videos going to bed at night, I'm kind of putting myself in a good place, like with something physical, but like you said, it's actually in there, and you can do it. And because I've done that so many times, like I said, I was getting all excited and happy just talking about it. So that's a really good thing. And we've actually got a few questions from the audience. So I'd like to fire them at you right now.
I'll do my best.
So the first one, I've got them over here, my trusty little notepad. I may have to go on my phone for one as well. So the first one was from one of the people all the people actually that sent us these questions also sent us really lovely messages. So again, thank you for that. So the first one that he says is, what is your advice for maintaining a good mindset over a long period of time? For example, I find myself going to the gym and eating healthy for a while, but I'm falling out of it after a while. So it's something that I actually am still struggling with at the moment. Like, I hurt my foot, and I've not been going to the gym obviously, and it's a lot more tempting, especially when I can't walk to the oven very easily, to just get something ordered in and stuff like that. So what would be your advice to someone that's saying they're struggling with that sort of thing?
Well, what I was often, just in a nutshell, I'd say remove the conditions. Because what we do is we live our life conditionally. When I'm getting to the gym or my yoga class, or when I meet with my friends, then my emotional dial moves up. And what happens when like that, the gym's not an option because you've got a sore foot, or you can't fit it in today or whatever. So this is what people do. They put their lives into conditions that change all the time. And I mean, I often say about it, and it's not to be morbid about it, but the day will come when I'll take my training shoes off for the very last time and the gym will no longer be an option. And then what do I have? So back to your question, you have all of the resources inside. And I use examples of this, like Nelson Mandela was in jail for 27 years just because he found himself in a regime and he had a colour of skin that they, were just going to lock you away. And he found ways in all those years to, cultivate peace within himself. And they thought about getting out. Well, in the outside world, they wanted revenge and they wanted to go to war against apartheid. He was cultivating the garden of his mind, if you like, and he even had a little garden that he created in his jail cell. And so there are things if you can do it in a jail cell, you've got evidence and supporting evidence that that's possible, it tells you that you make up your own conditions. And I use examples like that all the time. I think, wow, we wake up in Scotland, and we've got hot and cold running water and fresh air and flushing toilets, and if the toilet decides not to flush, we've got this wonderful thing called a phone that we can call this person called a plumber. And it wasn't that long ago that even royalty didn't have flushing toilets. And we don't think we're flushing the toilet and we're away in our mind somewhere solving all our problems. So we set our own conditions. And when you realise that, those conditions are self-imposed and that you can change them, he's a dynamic human being. He's not a statue, this is my life and this is the way it's, unless he affirms that my life's conditional upon fill in the blank.
Because he's telling himself, oh, my life's going good when I'm going to the gym and when I'm eating right. So if he's not doing that or he can't do that for whatever reason, automatically his life's going bad. So he needs to just remove that and just understand that no matter what is going on, he's got the ability within himself to feel good. And like we were saying before, if you kind of put yourself in that position, you're more likely to go and do those things anyway. I think just because if you're feeling positive, you're going to want to do positive things. So I think it probably would help in general if he's wanting to maintain that too.
And back to Eckhart Tolle just briefly, and ties into the question, so many people are human doings. And when you're just when you're a human being, and you're sat on a bus or wherever you are, or a jail cell, you can just be, and you can go inside. And my son's coming up for 25 in April, and I still remember that moment. You're talking about Rangers game. I've got a little catalogue of things within my mind that I just go to. And I remember Enya playing in the background, and it was in California. I remember the sun shining, and I remember that feeling. I remember holding him for the first time, the new baby smell, and all the fingernails, and I was just like, this is just an absolute miracle. And that was a quarter of a century ago. But it might as well be right in front of me right now. So you can direct the mind anywhere you want, and if it's Rangers, if it's the whatever, the colour green, or it really doesn't matter what it is. The mind and the body just goes, ooh, this feels better. You just want to move the dial a little bit, and what that does is it restores this feeling of well-being. And yes, and then when you get to go to the gym or do your thing or go to the game, now it's got an amplified feeling about it. Wow, it's like the word that I've borrowed over the years is this contrast. I've been in a lull for a while. I mean, even if you've had a toothache or a headache, and then it's gone, you're not really any better off, but just the absence of the pain, you feel as if you're better off. So pain and discomfort and challenges have value in them if you look at it that way. It won't last forever. I'm going to come out the other side, and enjoy the contrast.
Perfect. We've got another question for you. I'm not sure if we can put this into like 3 boxes like has been requested, but I think we kind of went over this a little bit earlier. So what are the 3 main staples that you have applied to your daily routine that help to look after your physical health, mental health, and setting yourself up for the future?
Well, first thing that I would say to that is I don't look too far ahead into the future. If you ask me what I'm doing nowadays, I say, I'm keeping positive and taking it one day at a time. Because even for me, living in the moment seems a bit elusive. Maybe Eckhart Tolle can live there, on a moment by moment basis. So I think teeing your day up every single day is really important in a positive way. And the way I've been doing that, and I've been teaching people for years, and it's the one thing that many people have said to me, that one thing was transformative. And it's when your first foot connects with the floor getting out of bed, is to silently say thank.
Yeah.
And when your other foot swings round, and as you head to the kettle or the loo or wherever you're going first, instead of right, left, or left, right, in your mind, just say, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Because gratitude, that feeling of gratitude and appreciation is powerful.
Yeah.
Because the mind's the body and the body's the mind, and what we think and focus on influences our biochemistry and the functionality of the body. Focusing on being grateful, the mind is it's like a goal-seeking mechanism. Andrew, why are you saying this? What are you grateful for? Well, I've got hot and cold running water.
Yeah.
And away we go. So and then you create, instead of biochemistry connected to stress and anxiety, which is adrenaline and cortisol, very damaging to the body, especially when it's chronic, all going on behind your eyes and between your ears. You're producing a different biochemistry when you focus on gratitude and appreciation. So that's how I tee my day up every single day. And at the same time, I would add to that, do not consciously allow anything in that you have to process, because so if it's the weather that gets you, or you look on your phone, you go, and the emotional dial goes down, don't consciously allow that stuff in. So, take accountability and responsibility of how you tee your day up. And then as you go through your day, I think that rituals are very important. We all have rituals anyway, whether it's a set time or whatever. We all, brush our teeth every day, and we take care of our physical hygiene and all these things.
We hope you do anyway.
We hope we do.
If we're going to be sitting next to you on the bus or anything.
Well, and the thing about that is if we neglect it, it will sooner or later show up.
Yeah.
But the mental hygiene isn't as apparent. And somebody can be like me, like for years you're walking around in quiet desperation, and you live in this self-imposed world of fear and worry and anxiety or depression or whatever, and you just don't know how to get out of it, except when you get to the pub or you go to the football game, and again, that's living your life conditionally. So as the body fades, which it will, and it's not to be morbid about it, our choices might diminish, the ones that we're used to, and then we just want to access some new choices that are within our new limitations, and create ways to enjoy life, because life's supposed to be enjoyed. And and again, if we watch the current news, what are we going to feel? We're going to feel we have no control, that it's helpless, that it's hopeless, that it's scary, all of these things. And it's not that we don't care, but I think it's important to care more about your number one relationship, which is your relationship with yourself. Because when you tend to that, then you're more likely to think, maybe there is something that I can do, maybe I can contribute, maybe even if it's just send them some positive thought energy. And I know that can seem a little bit new agey and woo-woo, but we live in a vibrational universe, and thoughts are things. So tee my day up, and as I go through my day, I regularly check in with myself. So this would be the second thing that I do. I just check in, like right now, just as you check in with yourselves and our listening audience. Do you feel relaxed, or do you feel tense? I feel, or do you feel, you need a pair of gloves on? And in the moment you notice, you can do something about it. So I check in, and if I'm feeling tense or edgy, or I've realised that my mind has floated to the illusion of the past and the future, in that moment I notice it, then I have choice to change it. And I use affirmations every day. If you ever see my desk, I've got them in front of me, because I know, even though I memorise a lot of them, unless they're right in front of me, it's a bit like going to the gym. I know all that stuff. I was a personal trainer. If you stop going, and you get complacent, sooner or later it's going to show up. So, minimising, avoiding the things that can negatively affect you. Don't consciously allow them in. And at the end of the day, just like you, whatever it is, whether you dip into a little YouTube video, or, don't watch the 10 o'clock news, and just settle into going to bed. I teach people to call it blanket bay. Because sometimes people have got a conflicted relationship with going to bed at night, and we spend about a third of our life there. So you want to think, oh, we're going to get a good night's sleep tonight, or, So we want to make peace with things. And so back to your question, or, make peace with it. Make peace with your limitations. Not everybody can be, good at everything. And focus on your qualities and your personal attributes that you have that are unique to you and the blend of them, and stay focused on that.
Perfect.
Was that 3 things? I think it was. Tee it up, check in, and close it off.
Yeah,
and
that's
then
a good one.
Start over, reboot every morning. Just lather, rinse, repeat. You know?
That's it. It's about good habits. We've got a couple more questions. We try and get through these a little bit quicker because I'm starting to get conscious of the time, because I remember he said we've got like an hour and 20 odd minutes on that camera, and we had to stop for the guys doing the work on the stairs.
Cool.
So one of them, which I think is a really good question, but how do you know if you are experiencing depression or if you're just experiencing profound sadness? Like, how do you tell the difference between that?
Well, back to Eckhart Tolle, thanks he mentioned him, because I'll draw on some of his teachings. He says that words are just pointers. We like to label things, but basically you know what good feels like and you know what bad feels like. And we go, what is this? Is this sadness or is this depression?
Yeah.
It just feels crap. It just feels bad. That's all. So we want to label it and go, well, how do I deactivate that? So we really don't need to analyse things and understand things, because you know how you feel. Do you really need to label it?
Yeah.
And does it need to become part of your identity and your conversation? And again, it's with the greatest respect that I say to people, when they're sharing things with me, sometimes I say, how do you feel when you're talking about that and you're focusing your mind on that? Oh, well, terrible, And I say, just don't ever talk about that again. And it's that kind of reaction, like, whoa. Talk about love, light and delight, pixie dust and rainbows, because as long as you talk about it, you keep it alive. And although we can have health challenges and relationship challenges or family challenges, money challenges or whatever, if we keep the mind focused over on the perceived problem, it just holds you there. And if it's over to your left, the solution has to be over to your right. And that includes habits. But sometimes people say to me, can you assist me or help me break this habit? And I say, well, forget breaking anything. What is it you want to introduce or install? It's over here. What is it that you want? Often when I ask people, what's your desired outcome, which was what I do when they come to see me, you get a clear idea on what it is you want to walk out the door with. And they'll usually go, right, over here. I don't want to feel this way anymore. I go, I get that. I know that's why you're here. So how do you want to feel? And as simple as that sounds, and as subtle as that sounds, most people are focused on what they do not want, when what they want's over here.
Definitely. Yeah, I talked about that a lot in the last episode. I was saying about the time we filmed it was Valentine's Day, and I was constantly focused on maybe an object of my affection or just the fact that everyone else was having such a great time on Valentine's Day and I was by myself. But I was like, well, this Valentine's Day, I'm going to go up to the city, I'm going to do a podcast, I'm going to get a haircut, I'm going to feel good about myself. And I was consciously just taking myself away from all of that stuff that was making me feel bad. So all this stuff sounds really simple, but that's because it is when you know what to do.
See that what you just said there. I work with quite a lot of young kids. I've worked with a boy as young as 5. I regularly see a boy who's 6 in America, and I've worked with teenagers. And the great thing about working with youngsters like that is they love the simplicity of it. Yeah. I'll say, do you prefer to feel good or bad? Good. What has you feel good? Oh, and away they go. Yeah. But often as, grown-ups, there's got to be, we want to complicate it. Yeah. There's this, it surely can't be as simple as that. The arms cross, the legs cross, So when you go, this is so simple. I don't really need to analyse it. I don't need to fix it. I just need to put something else in place here. And I'm not even, as a coach, I'm not the type of coach that has somebody sit down and write goals. Yeah. I'm not that kind of guy. Or there are even accountability coaches that you can hire, keep me accountable, make me do it, I'm not that kind of coach either, because I say to people, look, I already know that you know what you want. You already know what to do and you know what you want and you've walked in the door with it. So from that point of view, I'm not adding anything to it. You already have it. But I'm just going to give you insight and resources and ways to access it anytime you want. And be congruent with what it is that you say you want, because everybody wants to feel good most of the time. And, you know, it's you know, it's not possible to be positive 100% of your life and 100%. You know, you're going to be affected. You know, good people are affected. We care. You know, we're influenced by bad news and that. You know, innocent people. You know, suffering and things like that. But we're not doing them any good while we suffer about something that we can't do anything about. That's not intelligent. But some people feel obliged to do that, or they feel guilty if I'm not doing it. I've just got to watch the news. Why do you have to watch the news? Because the emotional dial's coming down. You know, because I feel that I'm doing something for, and you're really not. Exactly.
It actually works in really well with the next question, because the next question was quite a simple one. It just says, how do I stop procrastinating? And you've already kind of mentioned that kind of a little bit in the answer to that. It's like you already know what you want. You just need to kind of tell yourself, like, I want this, so I'm going to do this. As simple as that. It's like, we talked about this in the first podcast, like Mo Godat has a happiness flow chart. So it's like you perceive the truth in your life, whether something's true or not. If it's true, you say, can I do something about it? If you can, like you said, can be great news, right, I'll go and do something about it. If not, then you've got to aspire to live your life as well as you can with the tools that you've been given. So it's really just a simple, logical way of thinking about it.
And it's okay to procrastinate. I mean, I still procrastinate. And again, if you make peace with it, you know, I'll do it later. I just don't feel like doing it right now. In fact, I used to joke about it. There's a book written by a guy called Brian Tracy, who's one of the top drawer personal development people. He's kind of old school. I was introduced to him when I lived in America, and he wrote one of his many books. One of them is Eat That Frog. That's the title of the book, and it's all about dealing with procrastination. So the suggestion is in the title, like, do the thing that you would likely put off first. Eat the frog. And I would joke about it because I bought the book and I kept putting off reading the book. You know, it's like, I'll read that book later, you know. And I read the book and I thought it was really simple, you know. And it just put off putting it off or make peace with it. You know, a lot of people want to have it both ways. And again, we beat ourselves up, you know, I should be doing that. And I go, no, if you don't feel like doing it, you know, and nobody's getting hurt in the process, you're not neglecting your kids or whatever, do it later. And there are ways to, like, chunk your time down. You know, I learned from a business coach a couple of years ago this technique called the Pomodoro technique. You ever heard of it?
I have not.
It's where you set everything on timers. Pomodoro translates to tomato in Italian. So there's a big website, Pomodoro, and you set the timer for 25 minutes, because what we have a tendency to do is fill the time. We'll sit down with our accounts or our taxes or our homework or whatever, and we'll just spend as long as it takes to get it done, and it might be 3 hours, like, you just feel lousy. So you set a timer for 25 minutes, and the timer goes off, could be on your phone or whatever, and then you take a 10-minute break. And then you come back and you can maybe do 2 timers, or you might go, you know what, I'm going to give this an hour today. I'm going to chunk it down, and maybe it's going to take me 5 or 6 hours, and I'll do another 25 minutes or an hour on, you know, Sunday afternoon or whatever.
That's funny, because I naturally have started doing that. It's just something I came up with myself because of my dyspraxia. Sometimes it's hard for me to focus on certain tasks that I find menial for a long time. So what I do is if I say, for example, tidying the house, whatever, if I'm doing it, you were calling me like half a job sometimes in the house, because I would tidy a little bit and then go away and come back to it. But what I would do is I would say, like, right, okay, I'm going to tidy this, and then I'm going to go and play my Xbox for like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, play a game of FIFA, then I'm going to go back and I'm going to do this. And that worked a lot easier, because if you're breaking things down that appear difficult to you into small little chunks, it makes them appear a lot less difficult. So that's a really good idea. I don't want to rush anyone, but I'm just conscious of the time. I've got one question for myself, and it's basically about the current progress on my journey of self-care and improvement. What is something you've learned about yourself along the way? And I would say it literally is just the fact that I'm able to do a lot more than I thought I could. Like, I didn't think I'd be sitting here doing a podcast in front of everyone. I didn't even used to be able to even take pictures of myself or like talk into a camera for 5 seconds because I would be so self-conscious about how I would look. And now I'm sitting here for a long time in front of a camera talking to you two. So that would probably be the main thing I would say is what I've learned about myself is just that I can do a lot more than I thought I could. But we're going to go into the last thing, and you're credited with coming up for this. This is like a little tradition.
Can I ask a question if that's all right?
Sure.
So, Gordon, you're obviously fairly wise. You've got a lot of wisdom in there, I can tell. You've got a lot of knowledge. So I just want to say a short one. What would be your secrets to happiness?
Oh.
Just to see if I could pick your brains a wee bit on that.
Well, first of all, let me ask you, do you believe that happiness is available to you?
Yeah, I would say so.
And what brings you joy and happiness?
Myself? That's quite a tough one to answer.
What's the secret to you? What's the recipe for you?
I don't really fully have an answer for that. That's why I was wondering if you had one.
But this is it's not to throw it back. But there's because happiness is what makes you happy could be the biggest dread in the world for Andrew, and so it's kind of perceptual. It's subjective. So happiness is basically a feeling that lives there, and you know what it is for you. You could maybe explore it a little bit more. What brings me joy, and what brings me contentment or peace of mind, or just a feeling of feeling safe and secure. That could be construed as, especially now, like today. Considering parts of the world, just to wake up and feel safe. You could say, I'm happy that I feel safe. So, it's like degrees of happiness. So happiness, if you like, is a label for an emotion that lives up here. And where you might say, Gordon, I just love to swim in the ocean. And it might be you might have the biggest fear of water in the world and things that are crawling around under your feet. So it's unique to you. And it's unique to you, and it's unique to every individual. And you know what it feels like when you get there. And that's why I asked you the very first question. Do you feel that it's available? Because, if you don't feel that it's available, or you don't deserve it, guess what? It's not going to be accessible to you. Mm-hmm. So it's like sitting down maybe with your favourite drink going, okay, what makes me happy? Or what would make me happy? And what will that give me? And to keep asking that question, that's a great question to keep asking it. What will that give me? And what will that give me? And what will that give me? Because many of us have ideas about things, and then you get in it. I didn't quite think that, setting up a business was going to have me work 18 hours a day and have a nightmare of a business partner. Or let's get married. Many people go, well, let's get married, we'll live happily ever after. Yeah.
Or people do that with children as well. Like, we need to have a child. That'll help a relationship.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so they're looking for things outside of themselves. And happiness is an internal creation. Mm-hmm. And for you, it might be baby blue. And for you, it might be blush pink. Mm-hmm. Well, Rangers blue or whatever. Right now, a colour can have an effect. A view out of a window can bring you joy and happiness. So it's exploring what those are for you.
Yeah.
Is that... Is that okay?
Yeah, it's different for everyone.
It's different for everyone, but as long as you believe that it's available to you and that you deserve it,
it's funny that you bring up the colours again, because I actually wanted to tell this story because it was quite funny. It was like one of the first classes that I went to, and I was supposed to write something on the board, and there was I think it was a red pen and a green pen, and I audibly said out loud, and I think you were using the green pen and you handed it to me. I was like, no, I'll pick up the red one. And then obviously Gordon being Gordon was like, so why did you choose to do that? And then actually one of my pals that was there as well, Megan, audibly groaned, oh, for God's sake, he's actually doing that. And I didn't even really explore it myself, that I actually had a bit of an aversion to green because I was brought up being a Rangers fan. Green's bad. Don't ever look at green and enjoy it or touch it or anything. And it's a very simple thing, but now I've just totally eradicated that from my life, and I've actually noticed myself, things that used to really wind me up, see if Rangers lost or drew, I would ruin my day. It used to ruin my day, and I would be so upset about it. Mm-hmm. And now when I'm in the game, I'm enjoying it, and I'll still shout and swear and say, why did you no pass to him? And then as soon as the game's done, I'm like, it is what it is, it's cool. Because there's something where they're arranging a friendly with Celtic over in Australia, and everyone's losing their mind over it. We're no friends with them, we couldn't be friendly with them. And I found myself, I reckon a year ago I probably would have really cared about that. and now I'm just like, I don't really care. Like, if they want to do that, cool. Like, it's not gonna, like, I'll get to watch a game between two teams that I like watching play. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't really bother me anymore. So
and the outcome's the outcome.
Yeah.
And the thing is we'll suffer if we're attached to a particular outcome.
Yeah.
And as you said, my team lost.
Uh-huh.
It's like, that was the outcome. You know, that happened. But what we often add as human beings is, oh, why did that have to happen? And why is that happening? And we allow it to ruin our day. And one of the things I regularly say to people is, you notice you get to the end of the day one way or the other.
Aye.
In the week, in the month, in the year, and you'll get to the end of your life one way or another. Right? So it's like, so when you wake up and you tee your day up, and, you know, some of the things that we've already discussed, and you accept the responsibility that you are the creator of your own experience, and it does take some attention and work and practice, you know, whether it's through meditation or you know, filling your house with vases of flowers, or watching football or comedies. You know, what's your favourite thing to do might be the last thing that you want to do. Mm-hmm. So we're creators of our own experiences. And just something I wanted to say to you from something you said a few minutes ago, you know, the quality of your voice, the energy that you're contributing to this, the inspiration that you're offering people, and this is, you know, what often gives other people courage and inspiration. Wow, God, I'm hearing Gordon's story and, you know, Cammie's story, and well, if they can do it, and this is what inspiration is. And so you're a leading edge trailblazer. You're working through your fears, you know, and everyone starts there. Michael Jordan started there. It doesn't matter what your walk of life is.
Yeah.
And you are accessing your qualities and attributes that only you have. And while you're focused on those and you're adding some value to the world through your podcast and your, you know, willingness to do it, you are feeding your heart and your spirit and your soul, and you're cultivating your well-being. And while you're doing that, you can't be focused on dyspraxia or anxiety or you cannot do both at the same time.
Yeah.
So the more you do the things that you're passionate about and that you love, and the more you acknowledge your qualities and unique attributes, pay attention to those, and build on those, then you got a much better chance of living happily ever after.
That is such a good way to end it, because that actually leads perfectly on to the next episode, which I won't reveal yet, but you'll find out about on social media. But the last thing I wanted to do before we finish, because I'm conscious of time now, is the 3-word exercise that you do with everyone. Pick 3 words that you would choose to describe yourself as, or how you people want to see. And I didn't prep you for this because I know you know exactly what you're going to say. So I always give the example. For me nowadays, I think mine was very different when I first came to you, but for me now, I choose kind, fun and helpful. That's like how I want to see myself and how I want other people to see me. So I put over to you, Gordon.
Yeah, well, mine change. Because you know, I've got so many like you. More recently, it's passionate, loving, and tenacious.
Yeah, that's a good one. Tenacious, I like that. That's great. Well, thanks everybody for listening. I'm trying to do like a little quote for the moment. That's what I'm calling it to finish off on. So mine is: if you take accountability for your feelings, no matter what you've been through, you can choose to feel well about it or feel good about it. I think I forgot to write a word in there. So that's my little parting message for you all. Gordon, thanks again for coming on.
Thank you.
So grateful. Cammie as well. Thanks for sitting
to both of you.
Contributing little bits and pieces. And thanks to yous for watching, and we'll see you again next month. Cheers.